I'm now joined by Pollster Nik Nanos from Nanos Research. Nik, good evening and thank you for joining us on CTV News Channel. Appreciate your time.
Great to see you.
So your first thoughts on this victory, pretty much on expected lines, you'd say?
Well, it was expected from one perspective because the competition included 4 candidates, 3 of which were social conservatives. It was clear from the get-go that Erin O'Toole, as one of the 2 frontrunners, had the greatest potential for support. But the big surprise last night was in the province of Quebec. Not a big surprise that Erin O'Toole did well in Ontario and the West, but in Quebec he did exceptionally well, and that's what put him over the top.
That's right. We're talking about close to 3,500 plus votes. If you compare that with Peter MacKay, that was 2,685. And, you know, these talks about, Nick, that Western alienation is going to be a problem and O'Toole is from the East, he's an Easterner. How do you think he's going to be able to bridge the gap? Because, well, he got decent numbers in Alberta as well.
Exactly. I'm not sure if Western alienation will be as much of a problem because of Erin O'Toole specifically. The fact is that his profile and his politics fits very well with Canadians who live in the prairie provinces. It probably would have been more problematic for Peter MacKay, who is seen as more being a central or eastern Canadian. So I don't think that's going to be a big problem for Erin O'Toole. You know, the fact of the matter is he's pretty solid. He's reasonably mainstream. And it'll be interesting to see where he takes the party.
Nick, what's your take on how he'll be able to unite the Conservative Party of Canada? You know, concerns about spending, about cuts, about oil, emissions, etc., etc. Do you think Erin O'Toole is the candidate who will be able to bridge all the gaps and get the party together now? I mean, we can have elections anytime, right?
Well, the thing is that when we just look at the numbers in terms of the ridings that he won, the points that he won, and the number of individual votes that he managed to garner over the course of the leadership, it's a pretty big win for him because he received about 57%, if I recall correctly, of all the points.
That's right.
So I don't think unification is going to be a big issue for him. He's also likely to really well align with the parliamentary caucus, many of who individuals are from Western Canada. And I think the only big question might be, although he has his social conservative credentials, which are pretty strong, it'll be interesting to see whether he mixes any kind of progressive policies, for example, related to gender equality and human rights, as part of that mix as he tries to appeal to Canadians.
Yeah, I'm also certain that if Peter MacKay was the leader, there would have been a bit of an issue because he's not also a sitting MP, and we know that Erin O'Toole is. So, of course, he's familiar with the manner in which the party has been working in the Parliament, and that, of course, works in his favour as well. But Nick, let me ask you this. In terms of the country, people at large, Canadians at large, the connect that Erin O'Toole at the moment has with Canadians, what's going to be the challenge ahead that Canada is listening to Erin O'Toole and the policies and the promises he has to make?
Well, I think the challenge for Erin O'Toole will be fundamentally ideological, because of the fact of the matter is that many Canadians are receiving stimulus through CERB payments in order to help them pay the bills. The government has amassed a pretty significant deficit and debt through the pandemic. So the big question is, how do conservative principles related to managing the government deficit, not having big government, reconcile with the fact of the matter that many Canadians are benefiting from big government, at least at this point in time? So Erin O'Toole ideologically reconciling those two things, big deficits with what Canadians need right now, will probably be his biggest challenge. That's what Canadians are probably going to want to hear from, because if you're a Liberal, you're probably going to want to play the fear card that if Erin O'Toole and the Conservatives were in power, they would not be as generous when it comes to supporting average Canadians who are trying to get through this pandemic.
Right. And the other thing I want to talk to you about, Nick, of course, tasks lined up there for Erin O'Toole, but let's talk about Leslyn Lewis, you know, who started as a nobody, literally, there with the party, Conservative Party, as a candidate. And now look at her. People are talking about her. She pulled in a good amount of money, a good amount of votes for the party. Where do you see Leslyn Lewis in the party from here onwards?
Well, I think the other big winner last night was Leslyn Lewis. Mm-hmm. She was, for many Conservatives, a breath of fresh air. She was articulate. She was very good at defending some of her social conservative policies, but they were very well thought out. And she had very clear positions on a lot of that. And I think for a lot of Conservatives, they were happy to see her in the race. I think she's going to be one to watch. It'd be interesting to see what role Erin O'Toole gives her when it comes to the next election, perhaps helping to kind of lead the Conservative team along with Erin O'Toole. They could be a very powerful, dynamic duo, tag team, political tag team, so to speak, that the Conservatives can use to renew their brand and make themselves more relevant, especially for Canadians that live in the suburbs and in high-density urban areas.
Indeed, it'll be a very interesting tag team indeed. All right, we leave it at that for a moment. Great to chat with you. Pollster Nik Nanos from Nanos Research. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.